Good evening, good evening, good evening to all of you joining me on the live feed. Welcome, congratulations for getting yourself to this very special live freebie training. It's a last minute offer from me for you to get on this call and have a chance to learn about publicity. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Helen or Helenique, and I'm a clinical psychologist for 20 years, 25 years, 23 years. And I've had the great fortune of putting 170 women on stage for a platform that I designed in 2015 called Women of Truth. Back then it was called Yinalithia, which was the Greek Cypriot name. I live on the island Cyprus, and I'm opening this training tonight to everybody, which means you can be on YouTube watching this, you could be in the Women of Truth group watching this, and you have a chance to learn a little bit from me and with me about what you can be doing in 2024 that can really push your business up higher and into the hearts and minds of people that you can really contribute to, people that really want to learn from you, people that are interested in your message, people that might even have their lives transformed because of it. And this is an amazing time in history. I think there was a great artist once, Andy Warhol, if you know him, who said that in the future, everybody will be famous for 1 minute. But for me, famous in this context, with what we talk about tonight, is really for a reason, for the right reason, actually. So, what would you like to be famous for? What would be the right reason for you to be famous? Because we don't just want fame for the sake of fame. That's pretty ego driven, just kind of feel good or, dress ourselves up in pride and, boost our self esteem. But actually, that can be kind of dangerous because then you're sort of extending yourself out from a false sense of pride inside of yourself to just feel better about yourself. But actually, when you're famous for right reason, it means that you step into a leadership space and you actually start to add value to the community around you, maybe to the world community, the global community. And so tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about that, but very specifically about the publicity that you may need to be designing in order to reach many people out there. And in order to do that, I have with me a few people on the call tonight who are in a training with me, a 5-day challenge we've been doing. And I think you might have seen some content around that. I want to welcome all of you ladies. Thank you for being here. If you prefer to have your videos blocked, please do that. If you want to be live on the call, that's great. Just stay muted. Anybody that's interested in this live feed, you can put a comment in the YouTube box. You can also come and find us in our groups and learn much more about how we can all work together to raise you up, because tonight's call is all about elevating our destiny. And I really do believe that we rise as we raise up others. What do I mean? It's a time in the world where you want somebody who really cares about you and your work and really feels deeply into your passion for what you do, to be the one that's going to say your name when someone's asking for someone that can do what you can do. And you want to be that person for someone else too. So if you're on live with me in the chat, I want you to put down 3 names of people that you would love to recommend that you think can make an amazing contribution to somebody else. Right now, just off the top of your head, who would you raise up? Whose name would you say? And think about why and put that into the chat. It's a chance for you to think about what it really takes to be recommended. And now, as you network out into the world, if you run a small business, a movement, a platform, or a large one, those people are your executive network. They are people that really can support you and your dream to go way further. So I would love for you tonight to think a little bit about what makes you eligible for publicity. Why would people want to know more about you? What would really help them about what you do and why you do it, right? And we're going to go through a short training together, not very long, just so that we can each have an opportunity to think deeper into these questions I've started talking about. Now, you might already know some of this. You might have come across publicity agents. Maybe you have already started a visibility campaign. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're starting at zero. Wherever you are is fine, because tonight we're going to talk about what it really takes to be leveraging. And leveraging is about obviously making a difference in that you reach all these people that you know might benefit from your message, or who you can really help with what it is that you do. Everybody has a special zone of genius. Everybody has a special skill set. And when you take your personal branding more seriously, you want to present that. Welcome to Joanne Francis Boyle. Lovely to have you. It's been years. Nice to have you back. And as you'll see on my shared screen, if you go to the YouTube, and if you're not on YouTube, I'll be describing it to you. We have overlapping aspects of publicity and visibility, because when we're up to something and we want to contribute to our communities, or we want to build our publicity, we have to do a few things to make it possible. We have to build a different layered formula. I've been talking about that formula for the last few days. It's visibility, integrity, publicity, authority, and then capacity. And there are many different aspects to each of these that we've been referring to. And so you get an idea now that you could be looking at your fame or your publicity for the right reason as an opportunity to expand and reach further into the world, to radiate more of who you are out into your career, to become somebody that's serious about living up and into your potential. And in many ways, we've heard about that as a very special kind of process of self-development that we actually call actualization. How do you become actually who you are meant to be? Philosophers have spoken about it. Great masters, sages, seers have spoken about it. Scientists are now talking about it. Neuroscientists are explaining it. And you yourself have been seeing it online all the time, I'm sure. People are talking about potential all the time. But the concept was really refined by Socrates and then by psychology as a profession, because it was decided that really to know thyself, to really be the best that you can be, you need to know what your strengths are, you need to know what your struggles are, and you need to keep working to improve who you are, and then actually even become a very refined version of who you are. And that in psychology we call actualization. When you actually individuate, it means you become a true individual in your own right. That's what you want to be putting out in your publicity, is what makes you special, unique. What have you learned in life? What's your special mojo? I like talking about mojo because I do think human beings are magical. So there's a little bit of your integrity in that mix. What makes you a credible human being? Like, why would people trust in you is very, very important. What's your capacity? What can you hold? You know, if you say you can hold 5 things, but you can only really hold 3 before you crack, best not to say that you can hold 5 things. Best to say you can hold those 3 things and reliably, consistently hold those 3 things. Build, develop, learn how to hold 4 things. Learn how to hold 5 things. And then say, I can hold 5 things. If you're testing, if you can hold 5 things, say that you're testing to hold 5 things. This is all integrity, credibility, capacity mixed together. And all of this creates a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for us to become more visible and more authentic in doing so. Now, as we progress on this journey of publicity tonight, I'm going to share with you what I really mean by publicity. And if you come along to future trainings, I have one on media planning in February coming up on the 23rd. I'll be talking about the spectrum of publicity opportunities and, in fact, the pyramid. Like, how do we grade different types of publicity, and where are you on the scale of publicity opportunities? Because sometimes we might think we're definitely not eligible or ready to be doing a magazine article. But actually, you might be. You might actually already have content that you can rework. You might have some interesting answers that connect to a special edition. And maybe you can't be invited onto TV, but actually you could do your own private TV channel on a specific private TV network. There's many, many options and many different alternatives and variations. So let me talk about what do I mean by publicity. Publicity refers to a broad mix of anything that gets you into the public eye, right? So welcome again to Luca and to Galia. We've got some really wonderful women in the mix, great leaders, thought leaders, coaches, counselors, business builders, trainers, and even people that are selling products as well as services. So For all of these, you could think that you have either the option to brand yourself, to be putting yourself out into the publicity opportunity you have, or you could be promoting a product that you have or a service. But if you are personally branding yourself, it's kind of the safest way because people will know you for you. You can be posting about you and you're not just selling one thing. So if you're on the live on YouTube on my training, you'll see here I've got it on a slide and I'm going to go through it from top to bottom and from left to right. So I'm going to start up here at radio. Radio used to be really popular back when I was young. And I'm sure you might remember the word, or maybe you know it in another version if you're younger than me or much younger than me. Generation Z, X, or Y may not know what radio used to do, but radio was an amazing way of broadcasting live. We get that type of feeling in a live podcast, in a live video, on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live. It's kind of a version of this live feeling, but we have visuals now, right? Whereas before you would just hear the voice. This still exists, and it's still a great way to promote yourself and your services because there are people that are very committed to radio. It takes less bandwidth. It has a very different kind of feeling in the publicity that you get there. And there are many versions. You can do a commercial, you can do an interview, you could be somebody actually broadcasts a show. And radio still exists as an option. And we have now online versions of that too. So that's something to think about. TV is right at the top of the pyramid. It's one of the best and most amazing types of publicity, but you really generally only get like a 3-minute insert if you're featured on a special show. And you have to be invited to be there for that, of course. And one specific thing about it is that you don't really get to go very deep on TV, but you get very, very high amounts of people watching you at one moment. So TV is kind of cherry on top, right? But it's there. What we have nowadays, which many people don't know about, is private TV. And private TV is actually doing very well because it's considered exclusive. It actually has a very specific kind of following and membership community. And it has special people that are actually promoting that content. And you get like Apple TV, you get specific kind of brands that are doing very specific kind of private TV work as well. And at the platform that I run, Women of Truth, we actually have at the moment 2, and actually are speaking to a 3rd TV partner that has a women's channel just for women who are teaching different kinds of masterclasses or trainings, and another private TV channel that teaches generally men, women, and the other one is like a kind of version of that, but it's a bit more privatized. So it's a bit more like a podcast. I recommend private TV because I think it helps you show up in a much more professional way, get your content much more refined than just live videos and YouTube. And you're actually already developing a community by getting your content there. We've got media generally as well, and media can refer to anything that is either print media or perhaps some journalist coming to do an article about you or include you in some kind of documentary. Media is there because media is a more general term that actually can take form in many different ways. We've got summits as well. Summits are very popular nowadays, and they're very good ways to build your list. What is a summit? If you know in the comment or you've run a summit, I would like you to put on your comment list that you've actually been on a summit, or maybe you've run your own summit. I remember when I started running my own summits, I asked a friend for help. I know someone who's run a lot of them. I was invited to one. And later she became one of my speakers here in Cyprus, Maria Kay. She now runs an amazing retreat center in Goa in India. And she does very exclusive kind of pampering type events and retreats with very specialized kind of detox programs, etc. And she started summits where she was reaching out to yoga teachers and trainers who had something to do with mind, body health. And I was one of those teachers at that time on a summit. And everybody promotes the summit, and then everybody has to make an effort to bring certain people to that event. And then there's one link. I'm sure you've all seen them, or you maybe even interacted, or maybe you know them very well. But for those who don't, that link takes you to a specific funnel, we call that, where you get listed, you're in the database, you get information about how to attend the summit, and then that builds someone's list. That means you become part of that person's database. Sometimes summits let you share that information and sometimes not. So if you ever get invited to one, you should ask those questions. If you want to run one yourself, come and find me in the Women's Inner Circle called the VIP Woman of Truth Inner Circle, where we have a membership, and I'll be teaching you special techniques like these to build your publicity. It's great because you get to be known by all those people that are involved with you and their databases, their network. So it's a great way for everybody to promote each other. It's one of those concepts of we raise each other up and we all rise. And you also have to be quite selective sometimes, because you could end up on summits that are not really promoted very well. You could end up running one that doesn't really build your list so well. So there's certain things to know and certain tweaks. But if you haven't done that yet and you want to build a list or you want to start a community, I recommend you start thinking about that. Set a goal for in a year's time, because you need to learn some tech. You need to find the right people to collaborate with, and you need some help. So all of these little details are things you can be learning about in that year. Moving on, we have something called a guest post. And guest posts are quite interesting because they give you access in a more personal way to someone's following, their community. Let's say you come onto my Woman of Truth page as a guest and I interview you, right? I'm endorsing you. That means people are listening to you because I'm maybe the group leader at that time, which I would be. And they think, oh, well, let me listen to this person because Helen's interested in talking to them because I have some authority in that group. I'm the founder of the group. So I am endorsing you. You're my guest. And that way you get exposure to my whole community. And the same would happen for you if you went on to someone else's Facebook page maybe and you did a live with them, or maybe you go and you are allowed to present your services in a special video for the people on the live call. That's going to be your special publicity homework for today, right? If you're doing these challenges, you get some really cool little tasks that maybe you're totally afraid of and don't know what to do about, but actually it pushes you over an edge. And you get to a place where you can do something you've never done and start learning how to bring yourself into the public eye more reliably. You could also do a guest post in a written form, right? So maybe there's a picture of you and an event you're doing, and you talk about why you do these events, why they're so important for you. And oh, by the way, come and join this event with maybe a link. Now, guest posting is tricky because you have to have permission. You have to strike up a connection with that person. And sometimes you can put a link and sometimes you can't. These things are all to be arranged with the person you're collaborating with. Let's move on to things like articles and blogs. You know what that is. I'm sure everybody's familiar. But what makes a great blog? What makes a great article? It has to have some structure. And I like to take seriously the 3-point rule. Try not to say anything more than 3 things. I'm very, very guilty of this. I like to say a lot of things, and I get carried away when I'm saying those lot of things. So it's taken me years to refine that. And I think it's a great tip to think about it even as a sandwich. You know, you might even want to say one thing and package it in a sandwich technique, meaning like you start off with something at the top, introduction. You say the one thing you want to say, like your burger or your piece of ham. Maybe you have some decoration, little details you want to add to it, like your lettuce, maybe your cheese. And then you do a conclusion where you put the next piece of bread or the bun at the bottom of the burger. And that gives you some good structure. But of course, there's no point in writing an article if you're not saying anything new. There's no point in rehashing an article that's online or copying someone's content and just doing it a little different. You've got to have some unique intellectual property, some special intellectual or some special practical property, right? So you're teaching something or you're sharing an opinion or a state of mind, right? Very, very useful, very helpful. And some people will always be readers. They don't want to go and listen too much, or they've heard their kids complain about school, or their boss has told them all day what to do, and they just want to go read and relax, and they want to read a blog, and they're online. They're going to get your content. They're going to read, and they're going to follow if they like it. So articles and blogs will always remain as a great way to do publicity. You get articles that can be very developed, very professional. They can be research-based. They can be journal-based. So if you're an academic or a professional or you scientific in any way, or that's part of your genius zone to be a little analytical, like maybe I like to be, you can start writing articles of very high caliber. You can even write them for LinkedIn, use it as promotion, many, many options. Moving on now to podcasts. We all know what that is, but there's a real art to a podcast. And I will just tell you a little personal gripe. I think it's a little tiring to keep hearing personal stories. There's a lot of storytelling happening in podcasting, and it's sort of become a dominant genre, meaning that tends to be the format most people are following. But now I think there's just a lot of it. So can you build a podcast idea for your content that's not just about hearing a story or a person's point of view? Can it be angled at something really niche, really specific? And then you could build a story around that. That would be my tip for you about podcasting. But of course, if you don't run your own, why not get on a podcast with someone else, right? And we also at the Woman of Truth Inner Circle have 21 media partners. We have a few podcasters in our list that we know personally. And then we also are sending out a whole listing of podcast options for you, where you would go lead by lead, person by person, podcast by podcast, apply to be on their show, check out if it's the right group for you, if you think you can get something from this group, if you think it's going to be useful for you, and the kind of message you want to put across. And then you might need to even think about paying to be on certain podcasts that actually have reliable, consistent, highly converting audiences. What do I mean? Those people have spent years building their podcast. They have lots of trust in their community. People that come to their podcasts are looking for people to work with. They tend to buy a service, a product. They tend to convert into paying clients more than others. And those podcasters often are charging for access to their community because they've spent a long time building up the credibility to have that podcast and that community. We have some of those in our network as well. And these are all resources, as I keep saying, that we share in the inner circle. Moving along, you can see that there's also social media right in the center of this graphic that I have. And social media is something we all know about, but we also know many things about social media become tiring, saturating, draining, toxic, kind of useful, but then we forget it. So social media is a labyrinth. It's a very, very special place to hang out and present what you do, but it takes some time to really develop your way that you run your social media. Sometimes you want to ask for help. If you're not sure how to do it, I really suggest that, delegate it out for a while, but still keep training in what it is that you want your media to be about, because the flavor, the texture, the branding, the colors, the feeling, the values, the way it's written, the voice, the tone, the opinions, the political or non-political stand, point of view, all of these things are what people will be reading about you. So it cannot just be somebody else fabricating that. It has to get guidance from you. And all the coaches I've trained with, which by now are many, have always said that you have to do your own marketing for a very long chunk of time, because only then will you know what you're trying to say and who you want to say it to and how you want to say it. Because for someone like me, I have a very professional tone in certain instances. I can be a bit more relaxed on certain platforms with certain kinds of followers, but I have to also be sure that I'm the one responsible for that, right? And you might have something similar. Maybe someone's going to be a bit too serious for you. Maybe you want to be more casual in the way that you come across to your audience and followers. This is going to always depend on you managing your social media. We've also got here interviews, which is a great detail to think about when it comes to things like radio, like TV, like media, like summits, like guest posts. Even an article or a blog can be about an interview, and a podcast is often an interview. But interviews themselves could also give you lots of visibility, depending what they're for, where they get posted, but it just describes the format of that work. And I will tell you, after interviewing now definitely over 170 women, because I interviewed 100 women for my book, I interviewed another 10 for my thesis. males who actually were drag artists. I did my thesis on that. And then I've interviewed about another 170 people for live coaching calls in order to sell products and services and to find out what they want for visibility research. And then I interviewed about another, you could say 20, 25, maybe 30. So let's say about 200, 300 people, maybe over the years. It's very, very common that some people do not manage to be self-aware during an interview so that they manage their talk time, they come back to the question, they don't apologize, diminish themselves. It's all a public speaking exercise. And I would love to support you, train you, and help you contain your anxiety in an interview or in a speech by doing some speaker training with you. If you know you're someone that needs help with the way that you deliver on video or during an interview, because interviews are becoming a very, very popular way to get your content out there, and it's a really great skill to master. So interviews are also really great ways to get publicity. I want to refer now to magazines, and magazines are also now digital, and you have two options in a magazine, in fact, 3 or 4, but the two I want to refer to is the cover page of a magazine is amazing publicity. It gives you a lot of leverage, a lot of authority, a lot of credibility. And then it also gives you an interview or an article that you write inside the magazine. And if it's a good magazine, it will be normally an interview, and an interview that is very significantly relevant to some message you want to put out or to the general theme of that magazine. And when you're doing that interview, you do it in written form, answering questions. So you get some time to think about your answers, to refine, edit your answers, and actually then present something quite interesting for people to read. So magazine publicity is also considered a little bit higher level because you have to pay good money, 1.5K normally to be on the cover of a magazine and then have your insert inside. Some magazines are really great, like the ones I'm working with for my project in Dubai called I Am. I just partnered up with them. They are going global and they're growing really well. And they are starting to do this new format of magazine publicity work where they might get you many follow-up opportunities after you've worked with them, meaning that you go on the cover, you do an interview, and then you have an article a few months later that you write included in this package. You have some social media posts that they do about you as well because you've been featured in their magazine. And this way you get a lot of visibility. And quite frankly, you really need that because any once-off opportunity is not enough. Conferences are another version. Another way to get visibility, publicity, and of course, depending on what you speak about, how much promotion is done, what photos are taken, how professional are they, do you get a video, do you do your own promotion, photography, etc. I've got 3 more on my list here just to mention. Masterminds are another way to get visibility and publicity because perhaps you're networking with special people that can refer and also refer back to many different aspects of your work and maybe even will connect you. And then you've also got being on the board. A lot of women I know may not do that for that reason, but it certainly is a great way to be networking. And if you are someone that has advice to give, or you can promote and help a group of people take their initiative further with the advice you give, it's an amazing way to become visible. And of course, it's a very humble way as well, because you're not really doing it for that reason. Being a committee member, much the same. You have the chance to meet great people and extend what it is that you do to a broader space. So publicity also refers to PR, public relations, building partnerships, as I've just alluded to. And it's always about being in the space of connecting your private world, your private bubble with a bigger bubble, right? So I talk about that as elevating your destiny because I really think when you work on purpose for a bigger cause, you're going to be able to make more happen for yourself and for potential clients and for the community at large than if you just stay in your own little bubble. But of course, you have to get yourself ready to be there. And this is what all this training is about. That's why I'm sharing all this with you tonight, because as you've seen already, you're starting now to reflect on, am I ready for an interview? have I done a few interviews, and maybe could I do them a little bit better? Could I be a bit clearer in what I'm getting across? Or, did I do them fine, but now I want to go to another area? You're reflecting. Have you done joint ventures? Are you someone that is posting regularly? What are your posts really doing? Are they attracting possible partners to you? Are they giving you the right publicity to the right target audience? Podcasting, magazines, live media, TV, books, journals, all of these are great, great ways. Now, why do we need publicity? Three main reasons. Very, very easy for me to share this with you. And I think it's quite obvious, but I want to just define this for you clearer tonight, because it's a very important place inside of ourselves that decides to become public with what we do. And it should be and could be a part of us that is doing it, as I mentioned, for the right reason, right? So I think the most important one out of these three I'm going to mention is number 2, which is to transform more lives. Your personal story really matters. Your transformation in your story really matters. And your personal story can touch millions of people with the internet nowadays. And if that's your main focus, I think you'll see that publicity can become a very important way to do that. It also boosts your credibility. As we said, it's one of the fastest ways to elevate your brand and to build a kind of professionalism in what you do, and a type of seriousness in what you're doing. Because let's face it, not everybody gets out there, right? So when you are someone of a good reputation, you have great values, you've worked very hard on what you do, you can boost your credibility with your publicity, and you then are sharing your special contribution to others, and your authority for who you are, how you rank in your industry is increasing. This is very important because people will buy from people they trust. I'm sure you've heard that by now, many, many times. So your credibility and your authority are really important. And some of you are in industries where you would not be considered if you didn't have a certain amount of credibility and authority. So publicity is a way of demonstrating that, it's showing that, because not everybody gets publicity. So we have to build up our skill set. We have to have a toolkit that we know and we clearly value. And then we have to know who it's for. And then we're presenting that out into the world. And that becomes very, very visible. And that in itself is a very credible piece of work. I've mentioned before in many trainings that we know publicity and visibility from what we've seen politicians do and what we've seen celebrities do. So sometimes we see that distortion that can happen. That's why I talked about the ego. Got to be careful that you're doing it to transform more lives and that you want to contribute. And yes, you want to be able to build your business and get new clients and make that contribution that you're here to make, of course. But of course, all the while holding quite serious the fact that you want to walk the talk. You want to be known for what you can do, and you want to be authentic in that. It's also there, quite frankly, as I said, to attract more clients. There are many ways now through tech to do that. I happen to think publicity, though, is one very successful way of doing that. And it also is, I want to say, a quicker way of doing it, just because, if you're not visible, nobody knows what you're doing. And if you're going to try and be visible just through tech, it can be a little bit difficult. Here's a quick recap then of what I've just shared with you, that all of the publicity we've spoken about so far is to create, for most intents and purposes, an online presence, right? Because we're talking now about publicity and visibility that can be seen online. It's no longer in a newspaper or just on a television or just on a radio. It's now online. So publicity and online presence is what we're really trying to learn more about. And there's many different versions we just spoke about, like guest posting, being a speaker of some specific type of topic or maybe many topics, getting onto podcasts, either in the interview format, or telling your story or teaching something. You could also become a guest speaker. You've got magazines and all kinds of media opportunities as well. And then we also have this higher end publicity of TV promotion, which is 3 minutes on average. And you can also have private TV as well. Now, for those of you on the call, you'll see that there is a special promotional offer in the homework listing. We've got a great manual for you to be working on. You will have there a little tip on book publishing, because we haven't spoken about that so much in this call, but we have in others. And I've given you a nice link in your homework to follow up on book publishing. Just why should you write a book? How do you write a book? Who do you write it for? Just a nice introductory article to consider that kind of print media publicity. And then I've also given you a link, which I want to explain a bit more, of a search link for podcasters. And the reason I think this is an important link is because it's going to take you to a website where you can type in the name of any person that you respect and admire, and that person, if you type it into the box of this link that I've given, and maybe I can attach that link on this live feed on the Women of Truth video and on YouTube, you will see how much publicity that person has gotten. So my tip for you, it comes from my mentor, Selena Sue. She shared this great tip. I think it's great, and I'm sharing it with you. Is you take the link, you put it into your Google Drive, and you go and do a search of 2 or 3 people, maybe the ones you've put in this comment box here, people that you really respect, that maybe you think are your competition, maybe they're your mentors, maybe they're people that do something very different to you, but their style is very similar to how you want to present in your industry. Or maybe it's someone that does exactly what you do, but you don't think they have the same values as you. It doesn't matter. Somebody that you think you could really learn from. Put their name in that box and see every single link they have that refers back to their publicity. You will see what podcasts they've done, what summits they've done. It specifically looks at podcasts and summits. Now, let's say you find 10. I want you to take a note of that. Do a screenshot, do a copy paste, and go and check out some of those and see any of them that you think you could match or you could be ready for. That's a great way for you to start thinking about what you need to collect in order to feature on some of these platforms. It's a special search tool that gives you some data analytics on what ranking do these people have in terms of their publicity through podcasting and certain live video type promotion. Another thing I want to tell you about is the research I'm doing called Women Who Crack the Mold. I've already started interviewing women about the way that they can live beyond other people's expectations. We have a very interesting society that has sort of programmed a lot of women to serve others, and many of us, not just women, can end up feeling like we need the approval of others for a lot of things. And a lot of women suffer from this, the need for validation from society, from others, to know that they're worth something means they've served enough, they've given enough, they've cared enough. And I call that emotional labor, unpaid emotional labor. Not just me, many people call it emotional labor. But then when you put together the emotional labor that women do when someone is sick, the emotional labor women are doing for children to bring them up in the world, emotional labor that people are doing when other people in their families get older, or maybe their parents, it tends to be very often that the woman will end up doing that emotional labor. And that in itself just shows us that for a lot of women, there's a type of energy that's spent on, as I said, being in service of others. And that often can come with a certain kind of need to be validated by doing that. So I am worthy, I am useful, I matter, because I care for other people. And that often can hijack our energy, hijack our agency, our independence, our decision-making, our preferences, and pull us away from things that really often might serve just us, right? We even have a lot of critique. There's a lot of science on this, a lot of research on how criticizing women are of ambitious women, or women who get the job, or women who get the man, or women who got the house, or women who got the car. There's a lot of judgment and jealousy and frustration. It's quiet, sometimes very loud, very vocal, but it reflects again the struggle that some of us have with the idea of serving the self. And so this research is about that. It's looking at what does it take to live in the world according to your own principles. And I've interviewed now about 20 women who are my nominees for the Dubai Innovative and Integrative Health Thought Leadership Ceremony, where I'll be giving away awards to about 60 women. And for 20 of them, I started asking that question, and I'll be including them in my research. If you want to be part of that research and you want to take the upsell, call to action now, to write a chapter for that book, I will be asking you that same question, and I will be analyzing your chapter to help me understand that about you, how you crack the mold. So that means you need to be a woman who's cracked the mold. This is a partnership package. It's a visibility booster. It means you will be featured in that book and all the projects that we've done and at all of our projects. But more than that, it's contributing to a piece of research. It's also saying in your visibility that you are a woman who stands in your own right. You own your own power. It doesn't mean you are an uncaring or just ambitious woman. It doesn't mean anything. It just shows us that we can actualize, women, men, anyone, and define for ourselves what gives us value. We don't have to get that from someone else. We don't have to fit some kind of mold. We don't have to follow some kind of set of expectations. And it is high time, I think, that we put that message out there as women, because unconsciously, many of us are still driven by these subliminal type programs about how we have to fit some kind of mold to be valuable, respected, and safe from criticism, jealousy, or other people's expectations. So that piece of study, as you can see now, is quite analytical. It's research-based. It's very psychological. It's right up my alley. Maybe it's not up yours, but it's my brand. That's what my brand is about. That's what Helen Aha, or Woman of Truth, is about. Uncovering the deeper truth on how to become more actualized and more able to lead as women. So I demonstrated to you as a piece of publicity. I explained to you that it's now going to give me, let's say, a book as a promotion. It's going to introduce me to some masterful women out there who want to align with my vision and my purpose. So it's like a bit of a mastermind in a way, and a bit of a network building exercise. And I want to encourage you to build something like that yourself. It doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be research. But think about how can you explain a version of you in your publicity with what you're going to be designing in 2024. Okay? And if you're interested in that offer, by all means, come and find me and we can discuss it more, and I'll tell you what the package partnership price is for it. And then you'll also get the visibility from our events and the book launch and everything else that I'll be explaining to you. Now, as we're coming to the end of this training, I want to give anybody the chance to ask a question. If you have anything you want to say right now, because we're about to move to the homework, and I'm going to sign off the live feed for that and give my special guests a special chance to ask their own questions in person. But for now, if you want to comment anything on the box, anything you want to ask so far, please do that in the chat. And we're going to move to the next piece of information, which is about a special deep dive into the magazines and publicity partners that I have in the MENA region. For those of you who don't know, MENA stands for Middle East, North Africa. It's kind of a word that refers to Africa, the northern tip of Africa, the Middle East, which is Jordan, Lebanon, all the way around through to the Emirates, and circling at times down to Cyprus, and also I did mention at times Israel can fall in there, but mainly it's a bit more left towards Lebanon, right? And as you consider the MENA region now, it's one of the biggest developing markets in the world. I just went online yesterday, looked at a few new hotels. The place is booming, also with incubators and accelerators. The level of innovation that's happening in Dubai is unmatched anywhere else in the world. And we have partners there that are helping anyone who wants to generate new business, find out more about new clients, or who just wants to enjoy the glitz and the glamour just for a day or two, and or who wants to go and explore more options there. And these two partners, I've introduced already one before, and tonight I'm introducing the second one, is a special lady called Ambassador Helen by her nickname, but her full name is Adeshola Onadipe. And I got struck by her surname because her surname is actually the name of a very famous master drummer from Africa that I learned about many, many years ago, who was one of the first people to ever take a drum out of Africa to Europe. And the Onadipe tribe or legacy, I don't know if it's connected to this particular lady, but certainly caught my attention. And that's why I started listening a bit more to some of her content, and then realized she was doing a lot of PR work with a Ladies in Business magazine. So I want to introduce you to her. If you want to ever get some promotion in Dubai, this is one of my partners. Anybody working with us, if you do approach Helen Onadipe, she would know that you come from our networks, and there would be some special opportunity for you. So if you have any question, as I don't see anybody has, you can also come back to this live video, put it here, and I can answer you on the feed. And for the moment, I just want to thank you very much for spending time with me here today on the lives. I really enjoy sharing this content with all of you. I really do hope you get something from it. And if you want more details, more support, more help in any way, you can always come back to my pages, reach out, and I will give you some info, or just visit the website www.helenaha.com. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to sign off to the live feeds, and come and find me on Zoom if you're part of the group. And if not, I'll see you another time. Bye-bye. And for all the ladies and gents on YouTube watching this, it would be a really great opportunity to find out more about you and what you do. So perhaps you can let me know on these live feeds, and I will be very happy